In this video I'm going to be making a lingual retainer wire. So without making a blocked out model, we're going to be selecting this scanned model and paint on a layer. In the Splint module, open up the folder, name the model target, and then click on Paint on Layer. Here we're going to change the settings to 0.8, which is double the thickness that we want. We'd like to have the pads very thin, 0.4. I'm going to set the blue weight paint at 0.4 and halfway to 0.2. This will give me a heat thickness map. Then we're going to start painting. Now these pads can be checked in occlusion to make sure that they're out of occlusion. Once you've finished the painting, accept the layer, and we're going to remesh this at very fine, at 0.1 millimeters. This should smooth these pads. Bear in mind that these pads actually protrude through the surface of the model, Alt B, and we can see that this pad now is 0.8 millimeters thick. Once we cut the model out of the pad, it'll be 0.4 millimeters. Then we're going to commence with making our tubes by hiding our object. Shift right click to place your cursor, open up the tubes and draw the tubes. E to extrude. Here we're selecting with the dropper the model which we want the tubes to shrink wrap to. So in other words, it'll be offset from the model. These little markings are subdivision markings. To get rid of them, tab in and tab out. Then select your vertice, making sure that the snapping tool or the magnet tool is engaged. We will move these points. Display the wireframe allows us to see the wireframe of the object. This is important because we'd like the wire to be in a relaxed position. The snapping tool is on, which means the vertices snap to the surface of the model. Make sure the shrink wrap offset is only touching slightly, else if it's too deep it will then cut away from our wire and thereby our wire will be too thin. So only have a little bit touching. Then E to extrude, and then we're going to continue drawing out our wire and follow the contours of the teeth. This of course can be done with the opposing model in occlusion so that we can avoid any interference in the occlusion. The hygienic retainer has now been extruded, and then vertices can be reset by selecting them and using the G key. Do not overlap the mesh, always try and keep it in a relaxed state. This can be easily done by observing the lines in the mesh. Once you're happy with that, we will then remesh the wire at 0.1, which is very fine. Click on Remesh Tube. Then Alt H to unhide the pads. We have two objects now, which then can be trimmed using the model that we have on. So Boolean cut will then ensure that we have a good fitting surface. This will be covered in the last chapter of our video tutorial.